Hello, my beautiful cuddlebugs. Welcome to Ramblings of a Book Dragon, where we dive into the warmth of good books and unravel stories that feel like a literary hug. I'm Allie, your host, and I'm thrilled to embark on another cozy adventure with you. So grab a cup of your favorite beverage, snuggle into your cozy reading nook, and let's begin. But before we do, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe so they won't miss a single episode. I really value your feedback and book recommendations. Now let's begin. Today I'm reviewing Crazy Rich Asians and comparing it to the movie. It was written by Kevin Kwan and performed by Lin Chen. And I found it very interesting because I had seen the movie a couple years ago when it was made, and I had no idea, I knew it was based on a book, but of course I hadn't really thought of actually reading the book first before seeing the movie because, of course, why? And the movie was made in 2018 and the book was written in 2013. And so it was very interesting to see just the different dynamics between how different time is between 2013 and 2018. Like it wasn't really that long, but it actually really was because the movie follows the book pretty well, but there's definitely a lot more of a deep dive into the overarching family dynamics. Because in the movie, and the book itself is following Rachel Chu as she is dating a man, or a fellow professor named Nicholas Young, who's going to be the best man at his best friend Colin Khoo's wedding in Singapore. And this is basically the general pretense of both the book and the movie, except also in the book, we're getting so much more of a deep dive into the family dynamics. Like the majority of the chapters are actually about everyone else, like Nick's mother. We're learning about the different family structures. We're getting a lot more of a look into just how the different family, all the children and the grandchildren of the family are interacting with each other, and just how different everyone is based on how they were raised. Like we have Eddie, and he is doing really, really well for himself, and he's married to Fiona, and they have their kids, and they have a really beautiful apartment. He is really high up in a bank and managing top of the line families, and yet because his parents didn't give him exactly everything he wanted, like some of the other kids growing up, he still had all this, quote, trauma of not being the best, like not having the best things. It was just very interesting. And then Nick's mom, she has all of this other stuff going on as well. And love Michelle Yeoh. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. And I think that she did a fantastic job, of course, but I really wish, I know that this was a movie, so of course we want to focus on Rachel and how she's learning about everything that's going on with Nick's family. But I really wish that we got more of a dive into just how determined she was to actually dig up info on Rachel, and just how because the book was very much anti anyone who is not super rich, has super pedigree. It was interesting because of how very British they are in terms of the Singaporean super wealth, because they're very much like, okay, you need to make sure that your family wears the right types of clothes, but not the wrong. But you can't flash the wrong types, because otherwise you're absolutely showing how new money you are. I mean, that's the world around with new wealth versus old wealth. Like that's the thing that they're always yapping about, is how can you tell that a person is newly wealthy? Because they're flashing their wealth and buying expensive things and wanting to show, hey, I have my LVs, I have my blah blah blah, I have my Chanel bags, and it's all very much new family, new world dynamics versus old money, and how obvious it is. But then also we get into the dynamics of, if you're mainland China versus Singapore, and you have to come from the right family, you have to come from the right background. And it was just really interesting how determined Nick's mom was to figure out, okay, who is this girl? And they were all so determined to think that she was a gold digger. And Rachel had no idea whatsoever what she was getting into. And I really preferred the way that it was handled in the book a lot more than in the movie. Of course, I mean, generally speaking, the book is usually better than the movie. I mean, I liked the movie for what it was. It was a cute, light rom-com, and it was very surface level of the book because Rachel and Nick go to Singapore for Colin and Araminta's wedding, and we get into all the drama with going to the house and we and everything. But there's definitely it's the same on the surface, but we don't get, if you've seen the movie and we have that whole dramatic ending with the mom finally giving her support to Rachel in the end and that convincing them to become engaged. That doesn't happen in the book. Like, they don't actually, and I finished the second book. I'm not going to review it for right now, but I will just say that she doesn't give her approval until in the second book when she finds out who Rachel's dad really is. Like, we have this drama in the book where the mom does this digging, and in the book it's absolutely ridiculous because she and her truly bitchy friends fly to China, and they go to this place where you can buy knockoff brands, and they find out that she finds out that there's this guy who's a detective and knows who Rachel's dad is, and so they're doing this whole deep dive investigation of needing to figure out who he is and why is she interested in my son, blah, 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 blah. And so she actually and they find out that her dad is in jail. And so she actually apparently, like, we don't see this in the book, but apparently she went to the prison to talk to the guy, and he wanted a dowry for Rachel. Like, he had this audacity, and we find out that he was just a very bad man, and Rachel's mom had fled to America, and we find out that she knew this guy and he was very kind to her, and he helped her escape her family, the family that she married into and everything. And it was just a lot that was going on. And then also we really got into the dynamics with, like, Araminta was really nice and welcoming to Rachel, but we also had this whole issue with them needing this whole issue with everyone else being absolutely just mean to Rachel because of how, like, they viewed her as being, and it was like, I really liked how he was actually just really poking fun at how crazy everyone it was and just how absolutely ridiculous they were, because all these women thought that Rachel was after Nick for his money, but all those women were also after but then at the same time, all those women, like, they were wealthy, but then they were also talking about how you need to marry the right man who has money. So it's like, okay, so it's because they think that she doesn't have money. Like, okay, lady, like, okay, girls, like, calm down. But at least I like the fact that Rachel throughout the book was just like, this is so stupid. And then she actually did break up with Nick, and she's like, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to deal with this. This is stupid. And I really appreciated how in the book she did let Nick, because Nick wanted to help her find her dad, and he he gave her space to be able to do this, and he decided to help by bringing her mom from America, like in the movie, brought her mom over, but instead of pushing for the engagement with his mom giving the final approval, it was just like, okay, I understand that this is all ridiculous, but I love you. I want to be with you. And he gave her space to be able to do that. And I really like that, because not to give a little spoiler, because the movie was just like, it had to be a rom-com ending, and I'm sure that they didn't know if there was going to be a second movie, so they needed to have the engagement happen. in the movie at that time. But in the book, they like he had proposed and she had said no because of the family and the ridiculousness of it all. But she stayed broken up with him, and when they came back to the US to continue with being professors, she actually moved out, and he gave her that space. And eventually they do get married, but it's because she needed time and he gave her that space and that time to come back. And I did really appreciate that. But throughout the book, we just get all the ridiculousness of these crazy wealthy people. And what was also an interesting change was how in the movie, Astrid finds out that her husband is having an affair, and she just sees this and she's just calm, cool, and collected. In the book, though, she's like, we are not, and her husband wants to get a divorce. But she's telling him, we're not getting a divorce because that is just something that does not happen. And so she gets in contact with her first boyfriend, who's now doing really well and has a tech company of his own. And he is able to get her in contact with the detective because she wants to find out where his mistress is. And in the book, he helps by bringing her to where he is. And it turns out that he was having a secret affair. Like, it wasn't even really an affair. It was his sister. And he was just pretending to do this because he couldn't stand the family dynamics anymore. He couldn't stand being thought of as lesser than because he wasn't wealthy like she was, because he was just a soldier before, and she's super wealthy, and he couldn't stand the way everyone treated him. He couldn't stand all of it anymore, and it's really sad because his firm wasn't doing that well in the tech industry, and so the guy that she was with before was able to secretly do a deal where they helped with stock and arranged for her husband's company to do super well, and that in the hope that she would become happy with her husband again and that he would stay. It's just like, girl, if he's that upset, if he's faking an affair, divorce his ass. But then we wouldn't have the drama in the other books, but that's a spoiler for another day. But overall, I thought that it was really fun, and I understand the directions that they took in the movie, like especially I understand some of the directions that they took to change it, because in the book, with what they were doing in the book to showcase, because in the book, the Youngs, no one knows who they are, no one knows where they live, no one knows that this house is there, so it would have been a little harder to showcase all of that. But in the movie, her best friend Peg Lynn, as soon as she says, "Oh, you're engaged to Nick Young, you're dating Nick Young and going to this wedding," even when she just says Nick Young, she immediately knows who he is. But in the book, they have no idea who he is, like, who is this guy, and but they know about Colin Ku's wedding because it's the biggest wedding. It's the wedding of the century. So they're like, how does he know Colin Ku? Like, what is all of this? Like, how? And when Picklin drives Rachel to the house, and she's like, this house does not exist anywhere on Google Maps. What is going on here? And they're trying to figure out like who he is, and we find out that the family is very secretive. Like, they don't really allow for any photos. They keep their wealth secret to themselves. And I liked that in the book, later on when they're having their discussions and he takes Rachel away because he finds out all the shit that was going on with the wedding and all of the craziness that was going on with all the other girls and just all of the absolute insanity, especially when just everything, that all the insanity. And this was before the big reveal of them finding out who her father is. He explains to her, like, this is just something that's not talked about. It's something that's been discouraged from being talked about. So it's something that, like, he's able to explain that to her. And it's like, they don't really talk about why he kept it to himself in the movie. And so I thought that was really good. But the other interesting thing was that his grandmother, his ama, she is very much like, you are not marrying this girl. I do not give my approval. And he is like, I don't care. I'm going to marry her anyway, and just breaks his ama's heart, of course. And so I just found that to be just the difference. Like, it's similar, but it's very surface level similarities. So overall, I really enjoyed the book, and I read the second book as well, and I really enjoyed that as well. And that review will be coming out if you're interested. And I'm actually in the middle of the third book now, and it's just all full of all sorts of continued shenanigans and craziness. And I thought it'd make a little bit more sense to try to separate it out a little bit instead of trying to put it all in one episode like I've done in other books. So I will catch you next time. And again, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any recommendations of other books that you would like for me to read, please let me know. And stay cozy. I will catch you next time. Goodbye.